Welcome to the third lab concept video in physical geography. In this video, we will talk about how to use data from your observations to form and support a hypothesis. Then you will have an opportunity to apply these skills in Lab 3. A hypothesis is an idea that is formed based on observations. It is a best guess. As scientists, we then test the hypothesis through observation and experimentation. In labs in this class, I ask you to form a hypothesis and back it up with evidence based on observations from the data you have calculated or observed. In Lab 2, you put forward a hypothesis about why the Northern Hemisphere has a warmer summer and a colder winter than the Southern Hemisphere. And hopefully, you supported your hypothesis with evidence from maps of surface temperatures and surface temperature difference we looked at as part of the lab. In Lab 3, you will be asked to follow a similar process to explain why the east coast of the United States gets lots of hurricanes, while the west coast does not. This is a slightly more convoluted problem, so let's talk about how we can break down the data that we have as part of this lab to better understand this problem and build a valid hypothesis. First, write down the question that you are trying to answer. In this case, the central question of Lab 3 is, why is it that the west coast of the United States never has problems with tropical cyclones, while tropical cyclones annually cause significant destruction along the east coast of the United States? Focus on key terms. These will point us in the direction of where to go to gather more evidence. This question is asking us about two locations, the west coast of the United States and the east coast of the United States. Second, the question focuses on tropical cyclones. Next, gather the evidence or the data that you have. For example, the HTML GIS, the relationship between saturation vapor pressure of air and temperature, and what you know about latent heat energy stored in water vapor, and the Coriolis force and circulation of the Earth's oceans. Now, look at each piece of evidence and consider what it tells you about each of these key terms. Write down as many observations about each piece of evidence as you can. These should be simple statements, such as the water is warmer in blank location than in blank location, or cyclones appear in the GIS viewer at or above water temperatures of blank. These pieces of evidence are the building blocks for your hypothesis. Now, to form the hypothesis to answer the question, let's gather all of the data that is presented in the lab and fit it into a brainstorm about these key terms. You should start to see some patterns in the evidence that you have gathered. To form your hypothesis, restate the question. The west coast of the United States never has problems with tropical cyclones, while tropical cyclones annually cause significant destruction along the east coast of the United States, followed by a because. This should be followed by a statement of fact drawn from your data. Next, we need to support our hypothesis with the evidence we have gathered. To have a well-supported hypothesis, you will need to have several pieces of evidence based on your observations of the data. Scientists test their hypotheses by applying them to a new situation. So to test the hypothesis that you have built in Lab 3, you should consider a different location which has tropical cyclones, such as the Philippines. Do the same observations apply to this new situation? Does your reasoning from the first situation also apply to this new situation? If so, your hypothesis has become a theory which you can continue to test. After many, many tests, if the theory still holds true, it becomes scientific law.